Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I am your host, Mike, and in this review, I'm going to be reviewing episode 4 of Chucky, called Just Let Go. Well, in Just Let Go, it picks up right where last week's episode left off, and we find out that the boy who Chucky killed in last week's episode, Oliver, is indeed dead. Jake is questioned for his whereabouts in last week's episode, especially since Oliver died. We come to find out that the house is partially burnt down. Caroline, Lexi's sister, is in the intensive care unit. Devin only has some minor issues concerning his lungs due to smoke inhalation. And meanwhile, Junior is unable to run track for the next 2 weeks because of the smoke inhalation in his lungs. And in this episode, we do see a little bit more of Charles Lee Ray's past. And part of that past takes place in an orphanage back in the 1970s. And at this orphanage, he is reading Peter Pan to these 3 kids at the orphanage. And he actually takes them out into the woods where they discover a dead body. Now, the reason why they discover this dead body is because in this episode, we see young Charles Lee Ray of the 70s walking to go after the house mother for whatever reason, and he runs into the janitor as the janitor's cleaning the floor and tracks mud on the floor. Well, the janitor's none too pleased. He and young Charles Lee Ray have an exchange, and that leads to the scene out in the woods among some brush where we see the dead body of the janitor and 2 of the 3 kids that are with Charles Lee Ray run away. Meanwhile, the other one's there, and he's curious as to what went on. Of course, we see Charles Lee Ray has a switchblade knife and also slit the janitor's throat. Meanwhile, in the future, Evan's... Actually, I should say Devin. I need to stop saying Evan when it's Devin. Devin's mom is questioning everybody, including Jake's aunt and uncle, who are now his foster parents, along with Lexi's parents, and wondering why they didn't know where their kids were going to be this whole time when the parents were out. And a few other things do happen in this episode, and one of those things is the fact that Lexi learns about Charles Lee Ray transferring himself into the Good Guy doll back in 1988's Child's Play movie. And Devin also provides some other backstory information about Charles Lee Ray being a serial killer. Of course, another thing we see in this episode is Jake and Lexi not really getting along. Jake opening up to Lexi about why he wanted her killed. Lexi being freaked out about the whole thing, understandably, because Jake hands her this doll to give to her sister Caroline. And this doll turns out to be possessed and tries to kill everybody. So she's freaked out about it. So Jake and Lexi come up with a plan to go back to the house and try to eliminate Chucky. Well, they get to the house. There's a police officer walking into the house. Lexi and Jake go to the back of the house where they start climbing the stairs. Everything's creaking, cracking due to the damage from the fire. There are things falling down around them. There's debris everywhere due to the fire. They get to the top of the stairs. Lexi and Jake have a further exchange because Lexi finds out that Jake actually did want Chucky to kill her. She starts stepping back toward the banister. And then what happens is the banister breaks away and she slips and almost falls to the first floor. But Jake is able to catch her in time and pull her back up. Meanwhile, as Jake is trying to pull her back up, Chucky comes to life, pulls out his butcher knife, and he goes after Lexi, trying to kill her. Of course, he's unable to. And then Detective Drake comes into the house and he asks the two kids to identify themselves. And Lexi says that she lives there. And the detective says, "Not anymore. You don't. Not until this investigation is over and this mess is cleaned up." So the detective takes them all into custody. He sees Chucky, picks Chucky up, and says, "What an ugly doll." He then proceeds to drive the three of them to the hospital where he actually exits his police cruiser and goes into the hospital, leaving Lexi and Jake in the back seat. And, they're trying frantically to get the detective's attention because the detective took Chucky with him into the hospital. And they're trying to warn this detective about Chucky. Of course, all their cries for help, all their cries to get his attention go unanswered. Then Devin's mom shows up, opens up the back seat, lets Lexi out, and allows Lexi to go into the hospital, but she detains Jake because she has some questions to ask him. And of course, Lexi gets back into the hospital, gets back to her sister's hospital room, and unbeknownst to her, during the whole time that she and Jake were in the car and the period of Devin's mom letting him out, the detective has gone into Caroline's room and he has Chucky with him, lays Chucky on the counter, and sees donuts and cookies on the counter and next to Caroline's bed, and starts eating the stuff that's on the counter next to Chucky. And then when he turns his back to Chucky and starts walking toward the cookies that are laying next to Caroline on the table. Well, then that's when Chucky springs to life. He takes a knife and throws it at the detective's back, and it pierces his back. The detective actually falls down onto his back, driving the knife even deeper into his skin and paralyzing him. And the detective even says, "I can't move." And Chucky says, "Of course you can, because I hit your spinal cord." And Chucky's laughing maniacally at this point, to where he actually goes into one of the cases in the hospital room and pulls out some needles and actually sticks the detective with these needles. Then he grabs a few more needles and starts just sticking them all over and injecting whatever's inside these needles into the detective's body. Of course, the detective dies due to all these different drugs entering his system. Blood comes out of every orifice: his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his ears. And at that point, as Jake is being questioned, and they don't even know that any of this is going on, Lexi enters the room and she's with her sister Caroline. Meanwhile, Jake's still being questioned by Devin's mom, and Devin, who in the episode actually looks up everything he can about Charles Lee Ray and the Chucky connection, the Good Guy doll connection. He ends up telling Lexi about it. Of course, Lexi says, "No, I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'm not into nerd stuff." And Devin says, "Well, of course you're not. You're too busy looking at Teen Vogue." And they have an exchange, but an alarm goes off. And the reason why this alarm goes off is because after Chucky killed the detective, he pulls the plug to Caroline's ventilator. And now she's not getting any oxygen. She's on the verge of dying. So everybody's frantically running into the room. Alarms are going off, and the nurses are attending to Caroline, trying to get her, resuscitated. One of the nurses looks down and sees that the plug is lying on the floor. So she frantically plugs it back into the outlet to reactivate the ventilator. And then what happens is you see this pool of blood and it's flowing toward this nurse's shoes. It actually gets on the bottom of her left shoe. And she steps back, and there's no screaming involved, but just the facial expression alone from this nurse as she's looking at the dead detective. And everybody who's in there, Lexi's mom and dad are in there. Of course, Lexi's on the outside of the room with Devin's mom and Devin and Jake. And then, of course, Devin's mom enters Caroline's room, and they all see that the detective has been injected with several drugs by several needles, and there's blood flowing everywhere. And as the kids are looking right into the room, at this melted face of Chucky on the left side, disfigured. Chucky looks at them. Chucky looks at them with this evil look, and he lifts up his right hand and then proceeds to give the middle finger. Hello, Brian. Hello, brother. Yes, brother. And honestly, if you ever like the Child's Play movies, I think you might like this series because it actually has, in my opinion, of course, it actually has gotten better. And this episode alone has basically done what it needed to do. Piece together what happened in the Child's Play movies and bring them into this series and let these characters know what's going on. Let them know about Charles Lee Ray and the crimes that he committed. Yeah. Yeah, there are quite a few differences. And, considering that this is a television series, it's done pretty well. They don't really shy away from too much. Even Chucky's comments, he doesn't shy away. He even says at one point in this episode, as the character Jake, who's our main protagonist, is trying to pull this character Lexi up from having her life ended, he even says to Jake, because he's trying to groom Jake into being a serial killer like him. He says, "Come on, Jake, you know you want to do it. Just one less Karen in the world." Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. When you watch Star Trek the Motion Picture, it does definitely, have some nice nuances that the theatrical cut didn't have. So, getting back to this episode, I've got to say, as I just said to the Nepuro life form, you know, this show is getting better. The show is really making you start to root for the kids like Devin and Jake and Lexi, and hoping that they're able to find out what's going on. All right, brother. I will be sure to stop by. But yeah, this series, if you've been hesitant on this series, and I know I gave the first episode a 2.5 out of 5 stars after watching it, but you know, if you give this series a chance, it does prove to be a very good series. It does hold true to, you know, Don Mancini's vision for Child's Play, and that has a lot to do with Don Mancini being involved with the series. So, as far as this episode is concerned, I can't wait to see what happens in episode 5. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do another watch party for episode 5. I might just do a live review after I've watched it for myself. But as far as, watching this series, go watch it. You'll enjoy it if you like the Child's Play movies. You'll enjoy it if you just like to see something different. And that's what this is. This is something, different for right now. It's bringing back the original Chucky. It's bringing back Brad Dourif. It's, involving characters into this story that we're all familiar with. We know who Charles Lee Ray is, but these characters aren't familiar with him. And it's also building upon his backstory. So if you have been a little hesitant on this series, give it a chance. If you have Hulu, if you have Sling, if you have any streaming service, a cable provider, and you want to sign in to your cable provider to watch this episode or watch it via your cable provider, do it the legal way. Don't sell the high seas. But you really give this show a chance. Now, granted, it's not recommended for anyone under the age of 17 for obvious reasons. And you'll see it as you watch the series, and you see everything that happens to transpire each and every episode. But I've got to say, if you've been a little hesitant about the series, go watch it. You'll have a lot of fun. Yes, I'm gonna say it. Chucky is Chucky. He's an asshole. But that's Chucky. That's Charles Lee Ray. And you expect that from him. But as far as seeing these new characters get into the situation that previous characters have gotten into, that we've seen in the Child's Play movies. And no, this has nothing to do with the remake of Child's Play that had Mark Hamill voicing Chucky. This is going back to the origins of Child's Play from the first movie. So it's building up upon that. But if you've been hesitant to watch this series, I recommend it. You'll have a good time, and that's what it is. It's just a good time. It's stupid, silly fun, and you'll have a good time with it. And if you happen to like, horror, comedy, drama type series or, movies, you'll get an enjoyment out of this. Now, this episode, I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5. And one of the reasons why is because I know they're building up to something. What? I don't know. That's why I'm going to continue to watch each and every week. I'm going to continue to watch and see where these next 6 episodes take us, because from what I've been able to find out is this first season is only 10 episodes. So we'll see where episode 10 leads up to. I should say we'll see where episode 5 going to episode 10 leads up to. And yes, I'm leaving that in there. I'm not editing that out. So all in all, 4.5 out of 5. Really enjoyed this series. It really just makes you despise Chucky, and that's what you should do. He's the antagonist, so you need to despise him. Yes, you don't particularly care for Lexi and her attitude, but again, she's a teenager. These are all kids who are unfamiliar with the legend of Charles Lee Ray. Their parents probably aren't that familiar with the legend of Charles Lee Ray, and they'll probably end up finding out in the following episodes to come. So, all in all, I'm just going to keep saying it. If you like the Child's Play movies and you like, serial horror, comedy horror, whatever you want to call it, because there are some comedy bits in this series, but not too much. It's not over the top. But if that's something you like, I do highly recommend this series, and I highly recommend watching this episode by, any legal way possible. So, with that being said, this episode gets a 4 out of 5 from me tonight, and I really enjoyed it. Can't say it enough. So, if you liked what you saw here this evening, well, you know what to do. Give this video a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down, share this video with your friends. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. Let me know that you either liked it, you didn't like it. That's fine. And last but not least, if you'd like to, subscribe to the Pacific414 YouTube channel. I do episode reviews, movie reviews, I do gameplay, I do a variety of things here on the channel. So, with that being said, I am going to wrap it up for now. Thank you all very much for stopping by and tuning in, leaving comments. I want to thank the following for stopping by. I want to thank Brightest Day for stopping by. I want to thank the Nerdportals Lifeform for stopping by during this live stream. And I want to thank Nathaniel Maggard for stepping by. Thank you very much. Hope you all have yourselves a good rest of your Thursday. And I will see you all later. Take care.